In this video, I'll show you how I prepare my straw bales for planting after they've been conditioned. If you've never grown anything in a straw bale before, it's important to know that they have to be conditioned first. So if you're interested in finding out how to do that, I've already done a video on that subject, and I'll share that at the end of this video and down in the description. I usually condition our straw bales about 4 to 6 weeks before our last frost date. That way when the last frost date arrives, they'll be ready to plant. After the bale is conditioned, the first thing I do is loosen up the bale, and for that I use a heavy-duty hand trowel. This one has a pretty good backbone to it, and it doesn't bend very easily, so it does a pretty good job. There are lots of folks who grow in straw bales, and each person has their own way of doing things. And this has worked pretty well for me. For right now, I'm going to stick with it. You can probably see that the middle of this bale is starting to loosen up, and what that will do is allow more of the soil that I put on top to get down into the bale. I just continue to work on the bale until I feel like it's going to accept the amount of soil that I want it to. As you can probably see, I mainly loosen it up towards the center of the bale. That way not as much soil falls out the side. Once I'm satisfied with how it looks, I start adding soil. The soil that I'm putting on this bale is a mix that I made myself by using some used soil and some other ingredients to rejuvenate it, and it worked pretty well. I did a video on how I rejuvenate used soil, so if you want the exact ingredients that I used, I'll put a link to that video down in the description box. I just keep adding soil, then I pack it in and repeat the process until I think I've got as much soil as that straw bale will accept. I don't have a predetermined amount that I have in mind when I start. I just keep packing it in until I think it's had enough. Once I decide that the bale is holding about as much as it can hold, it's time to decide how many plants I want to put in the bale, and then prepare some planting holes. I wanted to plant 2 plants in this straw bale, so for that I take the trowel and then I continue to work down in the spot where I'm going to plant and loosen it up even more than it was. After I loosen up the areas where I'm going to plant, then I add more soil and pack it in. Not as much as the top, but enough to make sure it doesn't settle. Once I get the planting areas loosened up and then refilled with soil and packed down, the bale is ready to plant. When it's time to plant, I usually just press my fist down into the bale, and that makes about the right size planting hole. I try to keep the top of the root ball about even with the top of the bale, and then I put the transplant into the hole, and then I fill in around it. Even though I'm relatively new to growing in straw bales, I've enjoyed the experience so far. And one thing I like about them is the fact that they're higher off the ground, and it makes harvesting and pruning and that sort of thing a lot easier, especially for older folks like me. For the most part, the plants that I've grown in straw bales have been just as productive, or maybe even more so, than the ones I've grown in the ground. If you've ever grown in straw bales, let us know what you think about it. And if you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.